Hello everyone, hope you are all doing well. Today I will be talking about the, I guess, 5 books that got me into reading and eventually made me create this. Um, and I kind of selected these pretty eclectically, so they might not be the exact ones, but as we all know, memory is always um, a little flawed, but that's okay. So the first one I want to talk about is one that I think probably got many, many people into reading, which is Homer's Odyssey. Um, I actually haven't read this particular copy, but I included it in this video because it was kind of in my childhood when I kind of first began thinking of stories and narratives. And specifically, it was through audiobook. And basically, I would, I had CDs of both the Odyssey and the Iliad. I'm not sure in what version or what translation. I'm pretty sure quite accessible versions, not like this one. And before I would go to sleep, or if I was trying to go to sleep, I would put them into my CD player, and I would listen to these stories over and over and over again. And they kind of became almost part of my unconsciousness. I would say especially the Iliad, um, but also the Odyssey for sure. And this actually kind of manifested in quite a funny way, where I was at this kind of school holiday program for kids, and it was this kind of role playing type of thing, and basically we weren't told this explicitly, but we were reenacting the Odyssey. But no one knew that. It was just presented to us like it was just some kind of scenario. But then since I knew the story basically by heart, um, through listening to it, I um, basically started predicting what was going to happen uh, in the story, and the adults who had kind of put on the program thought I was cheating, or thought that some staff member had told me. They just didn't assume that I would know the Odyssey. Um, but yeah, anyway, I thought that was a kind of funny anecdote. But yeah, I I just loved myth. I also learnt about the North myth, Odin and Thor and Loki and stuff, as well through various in my childhood. But um, yeah, I I think I kind of grew uh, a kind of sense of wonder and excitement, but also familiarity and comfort in these stories through audiobook specifically. The next thing I want to talk about is something that I haven't really explained uh, throughout this channel, which is that I've kind of, in my own personal reading, I first took initiative to read stuff when, um, especially through kind of um, Japanese comics or manga. I grew up, I'm partly Japanese actually, and I grew up um, watching anime, but also reading lots and lots and lots and lots of manga. And I would read both the stuff my parents would get me, but I would also seek out my own stuff. Um, I, when I was younger, I have a core memory, and I don't have the book with me now, but I went to a local library and I found the manga section. This was my first time seeing it, and I was just kind of blown away by the colors and the aesthetics. And I picked up Dragon Ball Z, uh, volume number 6 of the big ones, if you know them. And um, I absolutely fell in love. This was when I was maybe about 6, I think, maybe 7. and I absolutely fell in love. After this, I found many other mangas, and it became a very important part of my reading journey. The one I have here is called Vagabond. This is the first volume of 12 of these big ones. It's has absolutely amazing art, um, which I can try and show you. So you can see it's really incredibly drawn, and the Vagabond is a story which kind of um, in a kind of slightly fantastical sense, it depicts the life of the samurai, the real life samurai and philosopher Miyamoto Musashi. It's actually unfinished. Uh, uh, the the manga industry is one of intense exploitation, which means that the authors, or mangaka as they're called, are usually very overworked. So you actually get lots of unfinished manga series. But yeah, this is one of my favorites, so I thought I would show it to you. And if you want me to talk about it, you know, it's very good. Um, the next book that I have is, uh, which is a kind of representative of when I started getting into quote unquote classic literature, and I have the very famous The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Um, my grandmother actually uh, bought me this for my birthday a couple years back, and she got me it because previously I had seen with her The Importance of Being Earnest, which is another one of Wilde's. It's a play by Oscar Wilde in theater, and so she bought me this, and I was kind of like, this was before I was kind of a serious reader at all. I'd read things here and there, but I hadn't kind of consciously been like, okay, I'm going to start reading book after book after book. And she got me this, and I was like, okay, I should probably read it because it's a gift. And so I read it over the summer. I read it a lot slower than I usually would nowadays, um, but maybe even a little bit better. And it was wonderful, a really wonderful book. If you haven't read it, it's quite accessible. It's very beautifully written. Um, you know, it's it's kind of it's very gothic, and it's also very I think it kind of is the kind of origin of many stories we told today about kind of hedonism and self-obsession and kind of reflection as a kind of medium for representing that, and mirrors as a kind of object or device that has changed us completely. And yeah, I really liked it, particularly for its gothic elements. Uh, and that kind of led me into classic literature and into literature itself because I kind of was like, okay, I like gothic stuff because around this, a kind of previously, which is maybe a book if I would have in this video. I had read in high school, which was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which I feel like I'm still dealing with today with kind of the um with certain post-human um philosophy and ontology that I deal with, that all of that thought um uh, in some ways has origins in Mary Shelley's original Frankenstein, in which, the kind of man and machine um, are not so easily separated. And yeah, if I had that book, I would definitely put that in here because that was one where I was also like, okay, Gothic literature is something I'm interested in. I like the kind of aesthetics of that. And that kind of informed me reading Shirley Jackson and also Dracula and some other stuff like that. The next book is one that I have uh, uh, a kind of really, I'm very fond of it in a way that these previous ones kind of um, informed my reading journey just as they are, but this one really kind of changed the way I think about books, and that is Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. I uh, was given this book after I had a discussion with my family about how I thought that it wasn't. I thought that it was dumb, that I thought that certain concepts of experimental writing were dumb, slash postmodern writing, I guess. And so I was given this book, which, if you don't know, is very experimental, very kind of architectural, as Calvino has been described, and it is certainly not a linear plot in any sense. It's kind of these. Uh, it kind of follows a reader who is trying to find the plot of the book he was reading, which leads him to another reader. But every time he starts a book, um, it doesn't finish, and so we just keep getting these excerpts of unfinished stories. And it's kind of a meditation on reading, but also writing, and I would argue a very kind of loving meditation on those, despite the kind of playfulness and teasing that it definitely has. But anyway, I kind of put this book here because I think it kind of taught me that um, books can be kind of experiments, and that kind of a linear narrative has been played with, and it's possible to play with it. And it showed me that authors are kind of artists in this way. And that was a kind of feeling that I hadn't realized yet. And now in my reading, I often am reading quite experimental things, right? Like I don't think I would have read uh, Joyce, but even like William Burroughs, if I hadn't loved Calvino, even like Woolf, right? These quite hard books which don't kind of adhere to certain rules. I think it just made me kind of more appreciate artistic entitlement, you know, to creativity. And the next one, uh, I kind of included just to talk about my kind of philosophical slash non-fiction interests. And this is Bodies That Matter by Judith Butler. Um, and just kind of an interesting Butler book to put in here because, Butler's most famous work is Gender Trouble, which is the book that precedes Bodies That Matter. And I actually did read Gender Trouble, or at least some of Gender Trouble first. I don't think I'd read all of it at this point. I'm actually certain of that. But I put Bodies That Matter here because um, I hadn't thought of uh, reading these kind of hard philosophical texts outside of university before this book, where I had to kind of I was thinking of writing something like a piece, which I do often, and it was going to be about intersex bodies in certain cultural contexts, and I kind of saw that in lots of the things that I'd referenced, this particular work of Butler was being used, and so I decided to read it. I read quite a lot of it. I don't think I read all of it. I plan to though, but I read um, some of the first chapters, and yeah, I think, and I think that kind of um, made me think about the body and matter and kind of um, who informs the body, who gets to be human, who doesn't get to be human, all these things that have kind of caught my interest uh, were kind of informed by this original use where I thought about what bodies do matter if we just talk about the title, right? But yeah, anyway, those are the um, 5 books that I think kind of at least represent my origins as a reader, at least a little bit. You have a kind of philosophical text about the body and about gender, and then you have an experimental architectural narrative, Calvino narrative. You have then a Gothic classic literature, which is written with beautiful prose. You have a wonderful manga, and then you have a work of mythology, which is at the origins. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.